promoting development. So what they're speaking is really invalid. I would like to also speak about the point where the first speaker was talking about the third speaker was speaking about these natural disasters can be controlled. Yes, we know they can be controlled, but our aim is to stop them, not to control them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have a reply speech from the affirmatives?
Thank you. The judges have come back for a reply speech. Our points for this argument, our points for this debate were disunity and infight, ineffective policy implementation, corruption. Their points were natural disasters, low agricultural development, and high level of illiteracy. We told team opposition to identify any school built by a leader, but they failed to do that. They said soil erosion can't be stopped. Land science, soil erosion can be stopped by planting trees, but not cutting down trees, by planting trees. And those trees, the tree roots hold soil particles firmly together. I don't know what you are talking about. They were talking about that we are talking about subsistence farming, but they're talking about subsistence farming, but we are talking about plantation farming. But plantation farming is the growing of one perennial crop on a large piece of land. Modify your definition. You say that agriculture is the backbone of Uganda, but we know that the government of Uganda is earning more money on the collection of taxes, and most people in Acholi here even are not growing crops. We raised the POI that stated that we as team proposition, we are tying the high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Team opposition was telling us their points, but they did not tell us what they tie the Acholi poverty index to. Allow me rest my case.
Thank you so much, team affirmatives and the team negatives. May you greet each other as I take back the mic. Take back the mic to the moderator as I
please come. Meanwhile, Simon, you'll be able to take some calls from your audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Willie. And of course, thank you so much, Al Shaddai, Team B, and Credo, Team A. Wellman Favour Affirm, Primary School be bed, La Winadium, and Jimne, Liatetica Meta Mera. Winky Botin, Jera Bira Bora, Deca Bora, Deca Ria, Deca Biro, Jera Bira Beach, Deca Jera Bit, Wanabor, Beach, Iwinu, Kid Machamke, Al Shaddai, Team B, Credo A, Gena Kerme Aju, and get out a Kingi, Kachamokene, Chan, Matia Chulini, T. Malupe, Kilutela, Mainoni Men again, Piti Mochwin, the 12 enum. Well, and of course, next, Noah Teki Opid Modern, Kachelki, Credo, Team B, Jerabira Bora, Deca Ria, Deca Biro, Jerabira Beach, Deca Jerabit, Wanaboro, Beach, in Namachim, Makamega, Maritul Baroso. We go for a short commercial break.
Are you interested in fish farm products and services? Come to Favour Fish Farm, located in Lawyer Dual Cell, behind St. Maurice Health Center. We have catfish fingerlings, sexually reversed tilapia fingerlings, and also mirror cup fingerlings. Big fish, table-sized, available at affordable prices. We also have highly nutritious, complete floating fish feeds that come in various sizes. Sinking catfish feeds with high protein content also available. We can also train you and give you the basic knowledge in fish farm management so that you can also grow your fish. Just like it is said that uninformed customer is the best customer. And if you are looking for farm tools and equipment to buy, get in touch with us for the most efficient and durable equipment. For more information, please come to our farm or call 0781 027904 or 0777 728008 or 0788 952701. Acholi Primary School's live debate. Acholi Primary School's live debate. Which school remains and which school goes out? This is the question that remains to be answered. Are you ready for this weekend? The 12th of July 2025. The knockout stage is here. We shall have more than 18 schools battling it out live on 104.1 Favour FM.
Honorable, let me inform you that domestic violence are
But let me tell you, this alcohol here, when our parents they have taken, let us assume that our parents just from the center taking alcohol will come and find when our parents
confidence, fluency, character, knowledge, and so much more. We shall also be live on internet radio via the Zero app, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. This event is sponsored by Favour of God Ministries, Genesis Fashion Point, Koropida, and GoTunesUG.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Mego IGG Miss Ann Tunumugisa Muhairwe, my Deputy Inspector General of Government. To me, what I mean, ni Amir me Utama Uganda, Omiro Kecho Kundupuri, for war more again. Wajika Uruberu kami war madon buduku manu kwalo chini wu kabiri nywaru kere ura you know tika promoting time ko so you know tika mirigi did we me kwalo do aye ye go kwalo biru kiriburi e don't chi go ke jira mi no yimbe do le ku so miru miru pelo ba ati wa do ba the deep pelo no ko time lwenyi ko time chamo te wa re ni pe miru wo maru matwal yo madu ku magi quality
Eric Kiwilemax, you met the sunrise. Peleke mwinyugi, ichembare ja waiche beach, chawa pari, wachawa mwen meudiko. Ya jel nara mwen tona jel. Favour from Markiki.
Man, you morning people. No, I'm serious.
We have had situations where we have gone through distressing moments, memories that at times leave us feeling stunted. As humans, we all have experiences in our lives that leave an indelible mark on us. Some of these experiences equate to trauma and traumatic situations and shape us much like our happy and joyous moments do, though perhaps more powerfully. To learn more about trauma, listen to a program on trauma counseling every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. only on 104.1 Favour FM.
Well, take a minute, man Favour FM. The Kiratimano Pierangwen, we are big chokare kumchapa bungwen Miricheng, and yes, Simon Man Favour FM live debate. Hello.
Hello.
For my take, I'll take a looking at.
I saw the attack. Should I speak in English or I speak
Please, with whatever you feel comfortable with, just go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. Let me speak in English.
Please.
Because there's something that I think in this debate, which is very touching to me. My name is Frank. I'm calling from Noya District.
Yes.
Our young leaders are talking things that is very touching to us.
Yeah.
You should tell our leaders who are listening to this radio debate that if a child is growing up knowing that a country is not being led well, with the current corruption and investment that is taking place in this government, then how are we going to raise children who are going to help us in the future?
Yeah.
This is one thing that I felt I should hear out my grievance about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're most welcome. Well, children are talking, and it's really a big concern. Whatever they're saying, it's really very true. Poor leadership can really lead to poverty in the region. So here, actually, our children and of course arguing both sides, and of course, well, mokol jera bira bora deka rio deka biro jera bira bicha deka jera bicha wana bora bicha. Willie, if you're ready, let me know. Next, no what yet kio pit more than kacheli credo B kino wadong nen chaloki around Maramario again. chino yubman tie kabini yangikini en matini no da wachi abichiel manyen kano watie kadonyo mene stage mo kene na ngangi magin tie kadugu ngangi machamo kene gin pebedugo but it's really interesting nen kin machamo kene adjudicators makamegwa gen gitie kador kede ot ini na matini eno ni engen achiel ma bekoni mateko twale no meno adjudicators an kosla muno Isaac gen ki Miss Angela ngomo kwe kirmo Pio Dennis agende kanene men school egni duju gimoy ken maure mbor gi pereno debed machake obero ki poron kachiel ki double A city debed Mario Favour and kos kachiel ki School Road number de obero ki Riverside gino debating ki Gulu Central Junior then the fourth round obero ki Ego and kos versus Labor Line then the fifth round round obero ki St. Matthews gin ki Acholi team A and then Mia Bichel obero ki Mama Catherine cause Gumaka again ki rooted Christian and then in Mabiro Oberki Acholi team B Gumaka again ki Credo team A. Will you take it over?
For to 12 Simon, what is ready? Debaters are now settled and they are just eagerly waiting to exhaust their points before our very good adjudicators. Now, without consuming much of their time, let me just take this opportunity back to the adjudicators.
Thank you so much, Willie Max and Simon Studio One. We are kicking off. May I invite the first speaker from the affirmative side, Honorable Lagen Maria Yvonne. Take up your place.
Greetings to you, the audience, and the adjudicators, and the two competing parties. Resolve: this House will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Currently, according to Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the poverty rate in Acholi sub-region is higher than the national average, with communities relying on subsistence farming. Many households in Acholi sub-region are below the national level. Currently, as we know, as stated in the motion, our parameter is Acholi sub-region. We as team government, we are going to advocate for the change of the way of getting leaders in Acholi sub-region, which is through appointment. We as a team government, we have our work plan here. Research on poverty indices in Acholi sub-region will be done by the Acholi Paramount Chief, which will take 4 months. Tabling a bill in the parliament for debate for the change of the way of getting leaders in Acholi sub-region will be done by the members of parliament, which will be in 2 months. Sensitize for the change, which will be done by the major houses, which will take 4 months. Implementation, the office of the president in partnership with the Acholi Paramount Chief, which will take 6 months. Me, as a first speaker, would like to define the motion. Poverty, a state of being poor financially and materially. Poor leadership, the inability of a leader to guide, control, and lead others. Me, as a first speaker, will talk about accountability of leadership. The second speaker will come and talk reduction of the rate of corruption. The second speaker will talk about reduction of government expenses. Accountability of leadership. When a leader is appointed in an office, at the end of the office, a leader will be accountable for the funds increase in case it has been mismanaged. If the leader fails to account the government expenses will be replaced easily. This will reduce the risk of continuous misuse of the fund, which is supposed to be for public consumption. Therefore, we as team government, we have come with possible solutions. First of all, we are going to promote commercial agriculture. We shall promote peace and reconciliation. We shall create jobs for the youth. We shall improve education and vocational training, e.g. by building more schools to reduce dropout, by providing free affordable vocational training, by introducing PDM known as Parish Development Model. Leaders use the money for their personal gains instead of developing that's actually sub-region. Now, the money that they could have used for building schools, is for their what? For their personal gains, and yet it will eradicate poverty in Acholi sub-region. Therefore, I say this motion is well written that this House will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. I beg to raise my case. Please, I invite the opposers to come and join us singing that this House will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. I beg to raise my case. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Yvonne. Let me invite Honorable Leader of Opposition, Honorable Charity Massimo.
My maximum and minimum degrees of salutation goes to the top of the high honorable adjudicators, the two competing parties, plus to the audience at large. Our motion for today's debate reads, this House will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, the sound of this motion makes me sick and debilitated, for it should have been written as, this House will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, speaking as the first speaker from the negative side, I have come here to perform the following task: define the motion, set the parameter of the debate, set the status quo, and lay down all cases. Whereas the second speaker will come to refute, rebut, or rebuke and explain the cases given by the first speaker, while the third speaker will come to refute, rebut, or rebuke, weigh, and win the debate. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to define some of the key terms used in the motion. Tie. To link one thing as a cause or reason for another. In this context, it means to blame high poverty levels in Acholi directly to poor leadership. High poverty index. It means a measurement indicating that a large portion of the population lives in poverty that is lacking access to basic needs like food, clean water, among others. Acholi is a tribe and geographical sub-region in northern Uganda made up of districts like Gulu, Padek, Kitgum, Agago, Nwaya, among others. Poor leadership. It's a governance that is corrupt, unaccountable, ineffective, or neglectful in addressing the people's needs. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, the parameter of today's debate is Acholi sub-region. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to set the status quo of today's debate by stating that Acholi sub-region remains one of the poorest areas in Uganda despite over 15 years of peace after LRA conflict. According to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics 2021, over 68% of the population in Acholi lives below national poverty line, far above national average of 21.8%. High honorable adjudicators, not allowed. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to outline some of our pregnant reasons. Firstly, environmental and climatic challenges. Secondly, the long-term impact of the LRA war. Lastly, cross-border insecurity and refugee pressure strains local resources. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to explain some of our cases. That is, environmental and climatic challenges. High honorable adjudicators, Acholi's economy is mostly based on small-scale agriculture, which is highly vulnerable to climate change. Leaders cannot control weather patterns and disasters that constantly destroy crops and increase hunger. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, these disasters include drought and floods. I know my opponent will say that droughts and floods can be controlled. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to lecture these young children here, which even are not even trying to debate, they're trying to compete with others, the seniors here. High honorable adjudicators, with these few remarks, I'd like to say that if the leaders are not sent the money, do you expect our innocent leaders to use their own resources and assets? My opponents here are not really merciful. They want even our leaders to buy for them the sandals and their legs. You are really misleading this house. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen. In 2023, prolonged drought in Lamoa, Agago, and some part of Kitgum led to destruction of over 45% of maize, groundnuts, and symptom yields according to the district agriculture extension offices. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, my opponents have not stated me clearly. I said that in 2023, prolonged drought in Lamoa, Agago, and some part of Kitgum led to over 45% of maize, groundnuts, and symptom yields according to the district extension offices. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not speaking out of the blue. This is reality. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, if the named leaders plan well, climate-related poverty will persist unless there is a national investment in climate adaptation. Then blaming the leadership that has no ways to stop locusts from breeding and stopping heavy rainfall that brings rainfall. That brings floods. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, locust invasion is just a natural calamity. Our opponents here are really confused. With these few remarks, I would really like to come and call my opponents to come and line behind us, writing an apology letter saying that this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. I rest my case by saying determination for victory. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Charity Massimo. Let me invite Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Pascal Lulamoy Dennis to take up your place.
Resolved. This House will tie high Acholi poverty index to leadership. Me as the second speaker from team proposition, I'd like to agree with this motion because of the following reasons. The first speaker from team proposition, our first speaker from team proposition came and talked about accountability of leaders, of leadership. We have leadership in a way that we know in the political system in Acholi sub-region we have leaders who are corrupt. And we know those corrupt leaders, supposing the government has sent money for construction of roads in an area. That money which was supposed to be used to construct roads or build schools or build hospitals is used by those corrupt leaders, is used by those corrupt leaders but for their own personal gains. And that's why we as team government we have come up with a way of changing, advocating for the change in way of getting leaders through appointment. Because if they are corrupt leaders, it will be easier to fire them. It will be easier to fire them. We'll get those corrupt leaders. We'll know that they're rejected. We'll know that they could have taken some money from it.
Point of information.
That money that we have taken will reduce it from their salary. They'll not be paid.
POI.
Give them some time so that they
Speaker POI.
rejected. We'll give them some time. They'll be in their office,
Speaker
but they'll know that
POI.
they'll not be paid.
Speaker POI.
It reduces the rate of corruption.
Speaker
As I was saying,
POI.
it can reduce the rate of corruption in a way that corrupt leaders will be there. And you can
Speaker
easily fire those people
POI.
since they are appointed. It is easier to do it, but it is easier to fire them since they are just appointed. We can appoint more leaders.
Speaker POI.
We'll fire those corrupt leaders, reduce the salary, like the money that they have corrupted.
Speaker
And bring
POI.
better leaders.
Speaker POI.
And these better leaders will make sure we bring the
Point of
leaders who are
information
not
go to
corrupt
the
so
top
that they
the
can
honorable
develop.
adjudicators to the current speaker. Is it allowed?
We'll bring in the leaders,
Give
but
them
we'll make
time.
sure they develop the area. They'll develop the area in such a way
Speaker
that we'll construct
POI.
swamps to prevent floods. We'll dig swamp conservatives so that it can collect water to control floods. We'll plant better trees to improve on. We'll plant better trees to improve on the climate of an area so that trees can grow. Also like to talk about. It reduces government expenses. It reduces government expenses in a way that now, supposing the government has organized an election, and you know elections are very expensive. It needs a lot
Speaker
of money. We
POI.
need money to buy ballot papers, ballot boxes, and even buy individual ink. You know that
Speaker
needs a lot of money.
POI.
You know that needs a lot of money, and the government will put all that effort just to organize the election. And to make it worse, you'll find that the elections are done, all the money has been used. Suppose now they use 10 million to organize that election. You'll find out that you have elected a corrupt leader, and that leader will just keep on. Supposing the government has sent money to, supposing to start up a company in a Acholi
Speaker
sub-region.
POI.
That company, suppose that leader will take some of the money and we'll find out that the money will not be enough to develop that company.
Point of information goes
And you,
to the
and
current
you know very
speaker.
well
Is
that
it
it is
allowed?
not easy. Rejected. It's not easy. It is not easy. It's not easy for the government to fire a leader that has just been elected because that involves the people in the region. So that's why we have come up with the advocation of changing the rule of system so that it will be easier to fire corrupt officials. Yes, you are talking about your PI.
Speaker, you are saying that our leaders are corrupt. Actually, leaders submit their assets, declarations on time to IGG. No red flags raised on them or a sign of that shows a sign of clean hand. Then, give me an example of a corrupt leader in Acholi sub-region that did not submit his or her asset to the IGG.
I cannot give you all examples of corrupt leaders because you never know if a leader is corrupt or not. A leader can take some money without anyone knowing. That's what corruption is. And also, I'd like to add more about the advantages of appointment. If you appoint leaders, it will be very easy to fire corrupt leaders. You'll find out that if, supposing, you have appointed a leader, you don't know that that leader is corrupt. That leader, you'll be, the leader will be corrupting money. The government will be like, isn't this person corrupting money? And then the government will suspect. They have found out that that leader is corrupting, supposing now 2 million. The government will do like this. The salary that was supposed to be paid to that corrupt leader, they will not pay it. They remove it. Like they'll be removing the salary. That money that the leader has used is the money that they're going to remove from the leader's salary. So, with those ending remarks, I'd like to ask team opposition to join us, saying that it is poor leadership leading to poverty in Acholi sub-region. I'd like to rest my case.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dennis Lulamoy. Allow me invite Honorable Beyonce Oyela
in a place where people are gathered. It looks so fantastic. I'm by the name Oyela Beyonce Okot from Opit Modern Primary School. Therefore, my high degree of respect goes through the table of the high honorable adjudicators, the two competing parties, and you, the audience at large. Our motion for today reads, this House will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say that this motion is not perfectly written. It should have been written that this House will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to refute some of the points mentioned by my opponent. My opponent talked about accountabilities of leadership and even talked about corruption. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say that our leaders are not misusing government funds because they are really paid monthly salary. Then why would they use government funds and yet they are also paid their own money? High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say that this House will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to rebuild some of the points mentioned by my first senior speaker. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, my first speaker talked about environmental and climatic challenges. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, Acholi's economy is mostly based on small-scale agriculture, which is highly vulnerable to climate shocks. Leaders cannot control weather patterns and disasters that constantly destroy crops and increase hunger. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to go straight to my points of argument. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, of which it is the long-term impact of the LRA war. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, the 20 years war by the loss-resistant army destroyed livelihoods, infrastructure, and social structures. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, during the LRA war, people's social structures were destroyed, but before the LRA war, people in Acholi sub-region were living peacefully, but because now the effect of the LRA war destroyed social structures. For example, people were, like for example, the clan leaders used to gather to solve the problems in Acholi sub-region, but because of the LRA war, people are scattered and people now are facing the difficulty that is poverty. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen.
Honorable Speaker.
Not allowed. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me bring this to your table. High honorable judges, over 1.8 million in Acholi were displaced into internally displaced persons for more than 8 decades, according to the UNHCR report 2006. During that time, education stopped. Farming, education was interrupted. Farming stopped. And health system collapsed. And the impact is still felt up to now. And nothing that our leaders can do. Not allowed. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, when farming had stopped during the LRA war, our farmers in Acholi land had no way to survive since most of the people in Acholi sub-region benefit from farming and it has increased hunger and poverty. High honorable adjudicators, the impact is still faced up to now and our leaders can do nothing about it. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me bring this more and more to my opponent's understanding because I think they are not yet believing. Allowed.
Honorable Speaker, you made mention that people in Acholi sub-region are suffering from the LRA war. How can the LRA war that happened 19 years ago affect the current poverty rate in Acholi sub-region?
High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, honorable, allow me to tell you that our leaders have no hand in that because people are suffering, not that because our leaders have failed to work hard, but because the 20 years war-resistant army destroyed livelihoods. High honorable adjudicators, it cannot be reversed by our leaders. Not allowed. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me bring this to your table. A 2022 report by Gulu University Institute of Peace and Strategic Studies found that 66% of families in Padeg and Kitgum lost all property during the war and still struggle to rebuild. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, poverty is a post-war effect, not just a failure of leadership.
The recovery is naturally slow, and this house can't blame leadership for that. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, I therefore say that this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. I say this for God and Acholi sub-region. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Beyonce Oyela. Allow me invite Honorable Mitch Doninda Karin.
Resolve. Our motion for today states that this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. I would like to start on my first speaker's point, whereby she stated the status quo currently, according to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the poverty rate in Acholi sub-region is higher than the national average, with other communities relying on subsistence farming. Many households in Acholi sub-region are below the national level. As stated in the motion, our perimeter is Acholi sub-region. As team government, we are going to advocate for the change in the way of getting leaders in Acholi sub-region through appointments, such as to reduce corruption. It reduces corruption in such a way that if leaders are appointed, they will know that they can easily be fired if they corrupt money. Our first speaker came and talked about accountability of leaders. When a leader is appointed in an office, he or she at the end of the project will be accountable for the fund he or she has managed, and therefore if a leader has failed to be accountable, he or she can easily be fired. This will reduce the continuous misuse of funds, which is supposed to be used for public consumption. Our second speaker came and talked about reducing the rate of corruption. When someone is appointed, he or she will have fear of embezzling government money, since he or she knows that one will be fired because of corruption easily. Then, as my first speaker stated, that I shall come and talk about reducing government expenses.
POI.
Our second speaker came and talked a little about that. Money which is supposed to be used in conducting elections will be used to construct infrastructure, which will at least create employment to people so as to get income instead of just sitting at home like that. Then, you made mention that LRA has impacted negatively on people's lives. How can the LRA that happened 19 years ago lead to the current poverty rate? Honorable adjudicators, we are talking about the current rate of poverty in Acholi sub-region. For them, they are looking at what happened 19 years ago. How can that impact positively on the current poverty level of Acholi sub-region? Honorable Speaker, the opposition side came and talked about natural disasters.
Go through the current speaker. Is it allowed?
Allowed.
The reason why we the opposition, we are talking about things of long ago, it is because it is affecting the people of Acholi sub-region until now. For example, the LRA wives, they are still suffering of this until now. The impact is still currently facing people, causing more economic impact.
Honorable Speaker, you are not understanding what I mean. How has it impacted on the current state of poverty in Acholi sub-region? You are talking about wives of people who are affected in LRA. Some of them died long ago. How can they be impacted right now? Please. I would like to rest my case by telling the opposition side to come and line up behind us and say that it is poor leadership that is leading to high poverty rate in Acholi sub-region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, allow me invite Honorable Lagum Favour Atim, the third speaker from the negatives.
My maximum and minimum degrees of salutations go through the table. The high honorable adjudicators, two competing parties, plus you, the audience at large. Today we are faced by a motion that comes like a blazing finance from L that states, this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. High honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, as a member of opposition, I would like to say this motion is not well written. It should have been written as, this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, as my roles were already stated by my first senior speaker, without waste of time, allow me make a step to my duty number one. That is refuting the misconception that were being delivered by my opponents. The third speaker from the proposition side was talking about employment, that our leaders are misusing the funds that they were supposed to employ, create with infrastructures to make our youths employed. But I would like to say to you like this: leaders like Lucy Arose Achan, MP of, but they have worked together with NGOs like HAVSI to train war-affected youths in skills like tailoring and soap making. And these people have become self-employed. Then what type of employment are you talking about? Honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me make a step, go rebuild the point given by my second senior speaker. That is the LRA war impact. Honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, before I go too further, my opponent, they were complaining that this thing lasted long time ago. But I have to assure you like this: those people, the wives of let me say that the youths, the people that they were, the people of long ago, when they give birth to their children, they couldn't have access to pay their children since they were up and down, moving up, all this because of the impact of the war. Therefore, their children, they have not been educated. It's not allowed. Therefore, it is affecting them until right now. Honorable adjudicators, that is the reason why we are still basically talking about the LRA war until up to now, because it is still affecting the people until now. Honorable adjudicators, allow me to rebuild the second speaker's point. A UNICEF report 2016 found that 38% of child mothers, former LRA wives, and actually live in extreme poverty, abandoned by partners and rejected by families. So with this, it means it is the impact of the LRA war that is affecting some people in Acholi sub-region until now, but not poor leadership, as was said by my proposers. Honorable adjudicators, with these few remarks, allow me to make a step, go and talk on what brought me here. Honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, my first speaker talked about environmental and climatic challenges, whereas my second speaker talked about the long-term impact of the LRA war. As for me, I'm coming to talk about our last point, that is cross-border insecurity and refugee pressure strains local resources. Honorable adjudicators, allow me go straight to my points of argument. Acholi sub-region shares borders with South Sudan, and many refugees have been resettled in Lamu, creating limited social services, this pressure increased poverty. Honorable adjudicators, allow me present a backup on what I have stated. Honorable judges, Lamu district has hosts over 70,000 South Sudanese refugees in Palabek settlement camp as per UNHCR report 2024, creating extra demand for water, health services, and land. The locals often complain about limited land for farming due to refugee influence in the area. All this lowers productivity and worsens poverty. Honorable adjudicators, with this, would we likely to complain on our leaders? Rather, we should complain on the international agencies for hosting these people in Acholi sub-region. That is the reason why our land is, Lamu district is complaining about the extra demand of water and health services. Therefore, the government have to provide support for these people, not our leaders that has no hand on this. Honorable adjudicators, in Lamu district, Lamu Health Department reported drug stockouts and health worker shortages as they were forced to serve both host communities and refugees. Honorable judges, this poverty pressure is caused by national refugee resettlement decisions and international humanitarian crisis, not poor Acholi leadership, also said by my proposers. Honorable adjudicators, with this, allow me wait the debate. Honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker came and talked about the point that states environmental and climate challenges. Our second speaker talked about long-term impact of LRA war.
As me, the third speaker, came and talked about our last point, that is cross-border insecurity and refugee pressure, students' local resources. Honorable adjudicators, we have put this into detail and we have given statistical evidences, whereas our opponents did not give any statistical evidences, making the points false, not a true point that stands still, because does not have any strong evidence about that. Honorable adjudicators, with this, I would like to say this motion has fallen down. Therefore, I say this for the month of Acholi sub-region that states, repair ayetero. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can we have a reply speech?
I thank you, honorable judges, for giving me this second chance. I am not here to debate, but to give only a reply speech. Honorable judges, we have explained 3 concrete points. That is, environmental and climatic challenges. Secondly, the long-term impact of the LRA war. And lastly, cross-border insecurity and refugee pressure strained local resources. High honorable judges, the evidence we have given is concrete enough with statistical evidences and local examples. We have drawn on real district reports, life experiences across Acholi sub-region. Therefore, we strongly agree that this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Thanks.
Let me invite a reply speech from the affirmatives.
Me back for reply speech, but not to debate. First of all, you're here saying that this house won't tie high actual poverty index. Now, I wanted you to come and tell us what they will tie. That means your point is invalid. Let me say, you're saying that you're talking about refugees leading to poverty. Now, we as the government are about the possibility of introducing Red Cross Society, which has helped provide food to the refugees living in Uganda. We as the team government, we have come out with possible solutions. First of all, promoting commercial agriculture, promoting peace and reconciliation, creating jobs for the youth, and providing PDM. First of all, you're talking about the LRA wives. You're talking about poor live long ago. Now, since you want to be currently, let me say that you're saying that those LRA wives have produced more like 10 children. We as the government, we have introduced PDM, which will help those LRAs to pay their children in schools. Therefore, I want you guys to come and join us while saying that this house will tie high actual poverty index to poor leadership. You came and mentioned that you will not tie. Please come and I want you to come and tell us what will you tie instead of you tying high actual poverty index and you not mention it. Therefore, your point is invalid. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can greet each other as you walk back. The next team is Lukui Primary School and St. Mark Puro.
St. Mark Puro, come and take your
Back
seat.
to you, Willie
And Lukui, thank you very much, Judge Angela. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Dennis, for the good work that you guys are doing. This happens to be the second last group of the students who are coming to debate. Let's come and sit down. Meanwhile, those who have already concluded can feel free to move. If you are following this debate very well, then you realize the extent of maturity is not as it was then in the past. So that means our schools are really doing very, very well in terms of nurturing the upcoming leaders, because we need people who are able to deliberate issues with facts, with figures, and with from a very informed point of view. This is very encouraging. I also encourage you parents who are listening to send your children to this kind of schools that do not actually fear to present their product before us in the court of public opinion so that we know them for what they are doing. Please come and sit, and the adjudicators will be able to appraise you. Then we will know your stand later on. Lukui, this is the opposition side, and the proposition side is sitting on my right-hand side. Yeah, please write your name, submit it to the table of the judges, and we'll be able to continue from there. Simon, let me first come back to your studio.
Willie.
Yes?
I hope me and you are still valid.
Valid? I do not know. I do not know if that also requires the verdict of the judges.
Oh man, just like you said, this debate is hot, you know?
Yeah, it is hot.
Yeah, anyway, and I go thank you so much, Willie, and our adjudicators. It's all happening here on Favour FM. Well, it's really good. We just had actually Opit Modern and of course taking on a grade B. And next we'll actually be going to Lukui Primary School versus St. Mark Poron Main School. Mano watie chok kanene meno wini doki borge. Meno kagen be bedekere mi ken magen beber ker mi lokere ane menu chan mati achuluni atie malope kilo tera magwok chamo kene piti atiro twale no anyway twero winye ke botin jera bira bora deka rio deka biro jera bira bicha deka jera bicha ngana boro bicha kai tikitam mamegi eno winyo debate kino pit modern again ki credo team B next no watie kanene menu wajolo do kui twale meno kachela and cook St. Mark Poro man Favour FM primary school debate la window dio. Hello.
Hello, Favour FM.
Yes.
Me uncle Patrick in Jokovana.
Yes, okay.
So you are you me when you get the piano nar pere yan mata te make a bit more room. So my logo done I think for you mata Adi ko bisa mi Lukui primary school.
Undo donyo en.
Angiro eti mo be ko no ngo e karo ne. No pu bo yo.
Ayela pe ko nene.
Ko la mo lo funi mi Lukui we.
Okay, ayela pe. Well, and because man Favour FM la window di ana foye mateko twal ka moye ken man initi ye eno. Atwane no ka tware winyo chimo kene. Hello Favour FM. Hello. Okay, jera bira boro, deka jera bira bicha, deka jera bicha bungwana boro, bicha. Hello, Favour FM.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Lubakin Vincent from Porango.
Yes, Lubakin from Poron.
First of all, I want to thank the director of St. Mark for taking that student. So we are very ready to listen for what they are going to say.
And they are going on next.
Exactly. But I want to thank those ones who are from presenting that one. They were very accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and of course, all the way from Puron. Anyway, thank you so much for you who've been listening since morning up to now. So far, we had actually Puron take on a double AA in our first set of debate, and then we had actually Favour Nasser Primary School take on School Road, and then Riverside also took on Gulu Central Junior, and then Igu took on Labour Line, and then St. Matthew took on El Shaddai Team A, and then Mama Catherine, and of course took on Rooted Christian, and then El Shaddai Team B actually versus Credo A. And then Pete Modern just finished with a Credo B, and now we are going to Lukui Primary School versus St. Mark Puron. Hello, Favour FM.
Hello.
Ana foi madam manga.
Ino pak rot ke van kajumane. De beiro war ma ba. For medical spirit ana.
Ana foi bene. Okay, for my deco twala and of course Tamaka Megu Duju in a short while. No can take a talk about Willie Max, and of course Matty is Studio B. Can Willie take it over?
Thank you very much, Simon. And I will not waste any time. I will just straight away take it back to the adjudicators, and I present these debaters before them right away.
Thank you very much, Willie Max. We are coming to the second last debate of this week, which is between Lukui Primary School and Puron St. Mark. And Puron St. Mark in the opposition and Lukui Primary School in the proposition. The Honorable Opio Michael, the floor is yours.
I salute the whole house. My name is Opio Michael from Lukui Primary School. I am coming here to oppose this motion, to propose this motion, which says this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Hide ownership passion. Before going further, Let me define the key word in the motion. Will is a modal verb. Tie, equality of score in a context. I, greater than normal in degree or amount. Acholi, a tribe in Uganda. Poverty, the condition of being extremely poor. Index, to change a system of numbers according to each other's or a fixed standard. 2. A preposition. Poor leadership is the behavior that are harmful to their team and organization. Hide ownership passion. Before going further, let me list the speaker's role. Hide the first speaker will introduce the topic, present the team's case, and outline the main argument. Our second speaker will develop the team's argument, provides evidence, and respond to the opposing team's points. Our third speaker will summarize the team's key points, respond to the opposing team's argument, and conclude the debate. Hide ownership passion. Here are our line of argument. Economic mismanagement, weak governance, limited access to services, social and cultural factors, policy and planning, leadership accommodation. Hide ownership passion allowed me to go straight to my line of argument. Economic mismanagement, misuse of land and resources which we, the Acholi people, will budget poorly on what the government have provided to the local community, making them fail to invest on job creation and opportunities. Example, money provided SPDM, which is Paris Development Model, have been properly misused because you find an honorable wife and husband decide to use it for diet the whole week, then how can you blame the Acholi of then how can you blame the Acholis? Of course you should not. Hide ownership passion. Allow me to stop here.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Opio Michael. Let us now have the Honorable Abe Farah.
Resolve. This house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I am Honorable Abe Farha, a renowned legislator from Porongo St. Magnus Primary School, established in Porongo Town Council, Noa District. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I, as the leader of opposition, it's mandatory for me to define the keywords. The keywords are title, high poverty index, and poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, title. Title simply means attribute or connect a cause of a condition or poverty to another factor. Dear ladies and gentlemen, high poverty index. High poverty index is the statistical measure showing a high proportion of people living below the poverty line, often without essential services, income, healthcare, and food. Dear ladies and gentlemen, poor leadership. Poor leadership includes corruption, incompetence, negligence, lack of vision, politics, and misuse of public resources. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to translate this motion into a layman's term. This motion implies that the persistent and high level of poverty in the Acholi sub-region of Uganda are primarily as a result of poor leadership rather than a national disaster, war aftermath, or donor failure. Dear ladies and gentlemen, our parameter for today is the Acholi sub-region, and our status quo is, according to Uganda Bureau of Statistics, over 67% of population in Acholi sub-region lives below the poverty line, more than twice the national average. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the recent census put Acholi at 20.5%, dear ladies and gentlemen. In Amur and Noa district, poverty rate exceeds 70% with dependency ratio and limited livelihood diversification. Dear ladies and gentlemen, youth unemployment in the region stands at over 80%. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Multidimensional Poverty Index 2020 shows Acholi among the 3 bottom sub-regions in health, education, and living standards indicators. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to unveil opposers' case. We will talk about climate and
climate change and environmental degradation. Secondly, high prevalence of alcohol. Thirdly, legacy of the LRA insurgency and prolonged conflicts. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to clear up the misleading conception maneuvered in by Honorable Proposer. He talks about economic mismanagement. Honorable, I want to ask you that, are leaders not providing employment to people? Are they not the one who are misusing their rights, dear ladies and gentlemen? Allow me to go straight to my lines of argument. That is none other than climate change and environmental degradation. Dear ladies and gentlemen, what do I mean by climate change and environmental degradation? Climate change refers to the long-term warming of the planet due to an increase in average global temperatures. Dear ladies and gentlemen, environmental degradation refers to destruction of the natural environment, including air, water, and land due to human activities. Dear ladies and gentlemen, climate change has made rainfall unpredictable with prolonged dry spells and flash floods, destroying crops. Dear ladies and gentlemen, why are we blaming Acholi leaders as the root cause of poverty in Acholi sub-region? Hence, we should have blamed ourselves, dear ladies and gentlemen. We all know that there are some natural factors that can happen at any time. Dear honorable proposers, I want to ask you that, did you anytime found a leader stopping natural factors from happening? Otherwise, you were misleading the House. Dear ladies and gentlemen, according to a 2021 report by Uganda Bureau of Statistics, over 80% of Acholi households depend on rain-fed farming. Crop failures directly cuts income and food supplies. Dear ladies and gentlemen, for example, according to a report by Uganda Network 2022, in Lamore, farmers lost up to 7% of maize and bean harvest due to mid-season drought. Is this one the problem of leaders, dear ladies and gentlemen? For example, according to a statistic by National Forest Authority 2023, Uganda loses 122,000 hectares of forest annually, with Acholi among hotspots. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Gulu Forest covers from 371 kilometers to 200 kilometers in 2020. This reduces rainfall and soil moisture, dear ladies and gentlemen. With this, I will say climate change and environmental degradation are the central drivers of poverty in the Acholi sub-region. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to talk on what my members will come and talk about. They will talk about high prevalence of alcohol. We all know that Acholi has the largest alcohol consumption in Uganda. Also, bartender in the Acholi sub-region lower the price of alcohol so that they get money. Even if the leaders put strict laws on this alcohol, they will still sniff and sell alcohol. Why are we blaming people as the leaders as the root cause of poverty in the Acholi sub-region? Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stop here. But before I evacuate from this pulpit, allow me to call all honorable antagonists to come and square behind me so that the thing that's in that says, this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Gratitude.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Abe Farah. Allow me then have the Honorable Aini Norbert.
Congratulations goes to the table of the adjudicators, the two competing parties, and you, the audience. Our motion for today is, will tie high Acholi poverty index Honorable said that the leaders they are providing things to people. They are not providing because they are corrupt. Without wasting time, let me go straight to my lines of argument. Weak governance. Limited transparency leads to undermined trust in government, creating poor accountability by governance, which makes institutions weaker in Acholi, affecting development and leading to high Acholi poverty index caused by leaders.
to keep the ball rolling, limited access to services, inadequate health facilities, poor school and inadequate infrastructure are the major challenges to the people of Acholi created by
POI.
poor leadership. Not allowed. Examples: Morto Road is overflooded during this wet season because of the poor government system. Not
POI, is
only
it allowed?
that, take a look
POI, is it allowed?
take a look at education in rural
POI,
areas.
is it allowed?
Not allowed. Where few learners have access to standard learning, is it that poor leadership causing high Acholi poverty index? Before I raise my case, this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. I raise my case.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ayini Nobat. Allow me then have the Honorable Yubu Rafael Nyero.
The precious table of the notable honorable judges, the two rival parties, ladies and gentlemen who got us resolved. This house will tie high actual poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm not well contested with this motion. It should have been, this house will not tie high actual poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm Honorable Yura Fanyero, a renowned legislator from Pronounced and Manasa Primary School, established in Prontown Council in Nua District. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to clear up the misleading concept brought in by honorable proposers. They talked about economic mismanagement. Under that, they explained further, saying, party's development model was misused. Honorable, I want to inform you that that money was not misused. Because that money leaders are provided to people in order to improve their standard way of living. Ladies and gentlemen, they also talked about limited access to resources. Under that, the Supreme Father said, leaders have failed to build schools. Honorable, I want to inform you that government have built very many schools. Like the school which are studying in. The government is the one who built. The government is a leader. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to also on what Honorable, our leader of opposition talked about. She talked about climate change and environmental degradation. Ladies and gentlemen, extreme weather events like droughts, floods, and heavy rainfall patterns are disrupting agricultural activities, leading to crop failures and reduced yields. Ladies and gentlemen, this undermines food security and increases poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to unveil my case, and that's none other land conflicts and high poverty and high prevalence of alcohol abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to explain the first line of argument, which is none other than land conflicts. During the Lord's resistance army insurgency, the Acholi sub-region experienced decades of conflicts, and this has made over 90% of the population to be displaced into internal displaced people's camp. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, do we still blame Acholi leaders? And we should not blame Acholi leaders. According to 2006, UNHCR reports that when people returned home after Lord's resistance army insurgency, they found boundaries, blood due to overgrowth, multiple claims on the same land. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, but also rising disputes between families, clans, and neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, unresolved land conflicts discourage people investing in their lands due to fear of eviction. This leads to underutilization of fertile land and reduced food production. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to explain the second one, and that's none other high prevalence of alcohol abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, Acholi has some of the highest alcohol consumption rates in Uganda. A study by the Uganda Youth Development Link found over 60% of households in Acholi sub-region reported regularly alcohol consumption, with some districts ranking among the top nationally. Ladies and gentlemen, the widespread availability of cheap alcohol like Lea, Kwete, Rupela, and Waraji wasn't the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, do we still blame Acholi leaders? And we should not blame Acholi leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, many men spend a significant portions of households earning on alcohol instead of food, investment, or education. Ladies and gentlemen, A 2020 report by Acholi revealed that in Acholi, an average household spend up 40% of disposable income on alcohol. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in Gulu, Kidgum, women reported selling farm produce only for their husband to use the money on alcohol. Dear ladies and gentlemen, if all the farm produce are being sold, what will children feed on? What will be used for providing their medical care? Dear ladies and gentlemen, with this we should not blame Acholi leaders. Alcoholism is linked to domestic violence, child neglect, and breakdown of family living. Dear ladies and gentlemen, women and children trapped in a cycle of poverty. Dear ladies and gentlemen, according to Uganda Demographic and Health Survey 2022 report, Acholi has some of the highest domestic rates of 78%. Dear listeners, can you imagine this? With alcohol, say this as a key trigger, dear listeners, with this, do we still blame Acholi leaders? We should not blame Acholi leaders. But, dear listeners, let us stop here. But before I go from this pulpit, I will first ask my opponent if they have any question. Do you have any question? Do you have any question? Do you have any question? They don't have any question. Dear listeners and gentlemen, allow me to stop here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Yubu Raphael Nyero. Allow me then have the government whip, the Honorable Akot Gillian. The floor is yours.
In a parliament where people have gathered, it looks so awkward to start talking without greeting. I honor chairperson. I heard one of my opponents saying experience in Acholi sub-region. I honor chairperson allowed me to go straight to my point. Policy and planning. Lack of long-term planning and inadequate data collection can affect decision-making and policy development, with impact to limited economic growth and poverty in Acholi sub-region. In that case, the government have given money for PDM. Government have given PDM to allow me to raise my case.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Akot Gillian, for that wonderful time. Allow me then have the final speaker from the opposition side, the Honorable Abeja Rebecca.
The honorable judges for tonight's debate, two competing teams. Ladies and gentlemen in the August House, resolve. This house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm Honorable Beja Rebecca, an eminent legislator from Pron St. Magnuson Primary School, established in Pron Town Council, Noe District. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I being an opposer, I disagree with this motion. It should have been, this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to start by clearing of the misleading concepts brought in by our opponents. They talked about poor infrastructure. Honorable, let me assure you that leaders have built good infrastructure development like schools and roads. For instance, your school is one of the schools built by leaders here, ladies and gentlemen. They also talked about weak governance. Let me inform you that leaders are governing Acholi people in a good way, but the Acholi people are very ignorant. That is why they're saying that leaders are not governing them well. Dear ladies and gentlemen, they also talked about economic mismanagement. Honorable, let me assure you that leaders have managed Acholi sub-region by creating enough job opportunity to people and providing funds such as parish development model. Dear ladies and gentlemen, with this, we should not blame Acholi leaders for high poverty rate in Acholi sub-region. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me add more light on what my team members came and talked about. They talked about climate change and environmental degradation. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this is true simply because extreme weather events like droughts and floods is leading to a decline in biodiversity, which affects the region's ecosystem and natural resources. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this loss is further reducing the resilience of communities, hence high poverty. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we also talked about high prevalence of alcohol abuse. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Acholi is the main driver of poverty in Acholi. According to Chief Justice Owing Dolo, poverty in Acholi is coupled on extreme alcoholism. Dear ladies and gentlemen, while leadership plays a role in local development, blaming Acholi's poverty solely over it simplifies a deep-rooted complex crisis. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the factor beyond the control of local leadership. Allow me to debate on legacy of the LRA insurgency and prolonged conflict between 1986 to 2006. Dear ladies and gentlemen, what was the main driver of poverty? Displacing communities and destroying livelihoods. Dear ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine this? Dear ladies and gentlemen, evidence shows that for nearly 20 years, the Acholi sub-region was the epicenter of the Lord's Resistance Army War, one of the most crucial insurgencies in Africa. According to the United Nations and the Refugees Law Project, 1.8 million people, 90% of the population, were displaced into internal displaced people's camp. Over 30,000 children were abducted and forced into combat or slavery. Dear ladies and gentlemen, can you see this? Dear ladies and gentlemen, consequence shows that entire generation lost access to education, land cultivation, and productive economic life, creating long-term poverty. Dear ladies and gentlemen, for instance, in Kidgum and Pade, school-going children were night commuters, hiding from rebels rather than learning in class. This trauma and lost time crippled development. A World Bank report, 2011, noted that Acholi lost 80% of its health infrastructure, and most schools were burnt, vandalized, or abandoned during the war. Dear ladies and gentlemen, you cannot blame the one repairing the house for the storm that broke it, dear ladies and gentlemen. Actually, leaders are operating within a broken, fragile, and neglected system. And when leadership reforms are needed, the roots of poverty lie beyond local control in war, national politics, trauma, and marginalization. Dear ladies and gentlemen, since this is a policy motion, we expected the Prime Minister to give us their policy models or how they are going to implement the policy, but they did not tell us who they are. What policy are they making? The rationale, the mechanism, their source of fund, when they will implement the policy, and the benefits, dear ladies and gentlemen. With this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my opponents, do you have any interjection? Do you have? No, you don't have any interjection with me. Meaning, you are all saying that this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. With this house will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. I rest my case.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Abeja Rebecca. Let us now have the reply speaker.
I have come back for the second time for reply speech. Honorable said that we come from a school built by the government, but the school is weak. So the leaders should be blamed. Since our third speaker did not explain the two remaining points, so let me help him. Social and cultural factors, lack of social and protection, limit social protection, which can leave vulnerable people exposed to poverty and exploitation. Example, the upper land wrangles created between Acholi and Madi created great negative impact on Acholi people because the leaders who could stand by, they were not there. Furthermore, policy and planning. Poor policy implementation, lack of long-term planning and inadequate data collection can affect decision making and not allowed. And policy development.
No POI during reply speeches. Speaker, you're left with 15 seconds.
Which can impact to limited economic growth and poverty in Acholi sub-region. In this case, the government have given money for PDM to its citizens, but without proper planning and policy implement. Other people have changed PDM to become personal drinking money, which is caused by poor, poor, poor leadership without planning well.
Thank you, Speaker. Your time is done.
I wish to talk more because of time. I will stop here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me have the final reply, Speaker.
The precious table of the notable honorable judges, the two rival parties, ladies and gentlemen in August House, resolve. This house will tie high actual poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I'm not well contested with this motion. It should have been. This house will not tie high actual poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I have reappeared on this pulpit to give out reply speeches for honorable opposers. We are so sure that we are going to win this debate because we have strong points and explanation. That is to say, climate change and environmental degradation, extreme weather events like droughts, floods, and heavy rainfalls,
Information is zero allowed.
Are disrupting agricultural activities, leading to crop failures and reduced yield. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we also talked about high prevalence of alcohol abuse. Dear ladies and gentlemen, alcohol is the main drivers of poverty in Acholi. According to Chief Justice Windolo, prove that poverty in Acholi is coupled on extreme alcoholism. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we also talked about legacy of the LRL insurgency and prolonged conflicts. Dear ladies and gentlemen, what was the main driver of poverty in Acholi sub-region? The entire generation lost access to education, land cultivation, and productive economic life, creating long-term poverty. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we also talked about land conflicts. Dear ladies and the ignorance and greediness of people in Acholi are leaving many vulnerable to poverty, displacement, and exploitation of, and we cannot blame leaders for this. Dear ladies and gentlemen, well, honorable proposals came with, dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stop here.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Yubo Raphael Nyero, for concluding today's debate between Lukui Primary School in the proposition and St. Mark Puron in the opposition. Please, you can have a handshake as you leave the stage. Finally, we are going to have a debate between Gulu Central Junior School versus Gulu Central Nursery and Primary. Please, I need some clarification on the name of this school. Okay? But otherwise, it's Gulu Central versus a swing team. Nursery and Primary versus a swing team.
What is a swing team?
I am just going to explain what a swing team is. We did not receive Orchard Nursery and Primary School. So automatically Gulu Central Nursery and Primary School have already qualified. But because these young boys and girls came with the interest of debating and they feel they want to debate, we have organized a swing team comprising of pupils from different schools. At least 3 of them have volunteered. Can I confirm the name of this swing team and the schools?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, proceed.
The name I hope that is speaker number 1. Abeja Rebecca, are you speaker number 1? Who is speaker number 1? Okay, the speaker number 1 is called Salome Christian Opoka from El Shaddai Nursery and Primary School. That is the first speaker from the swing team. The second speaker from the swing team is called Kisa Ker Okelo, also from El Shaddai Nursery and Primary School. Then the final speaker on the opposition side is none other than the Honorable Abeja Rebecca from St. Mark, Pran. Back to studio.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and because our adjudicators, and thank you so much, Willie. That means what Donkey just one set of the debate, but give me win adjudicator Wajoken, and of course one of the school didn't turn up. Men Ocha Tian Lokan men one long auto Tino Kigan Kwan Mana Mageno Ye Kamagit Vera Berkermi Chuna Karachel Ki Gul Central. Anyway, I win keep in a lot Favour FM. Hello.
Debate not getting into your lawyer.
Anybody can
right. I'm very confident.
For him attack me. Okay. Anyway, men of Bedokin look quick. I chill kiss and Mark Poron. Wing Kong Bennett, Chimo Canada Kache, Jera Bira Bora, Deca Bora, Decaria, Decabira. Hello, Favour FM.
Hey.
Man Simon. Alfoya Bennett.
I think when you keep power kind of take a you between your phone.
Take oh, yeah, get it on.
Okay, not can I wait. Manitoba.
Yes, Kenneth. Yes, Kenneth.
Yes, that's all the time.
Mateko twala men twala men tam ki in mighty local for Mateko twa in a short while, and of course no will be there. I'm in studio B. A lot Favour FM. Yes.
No, the bed and I put up a year more. That's on going to tell a child win again, get them in the 10 of law.
Conlogadani.
And a big year gear.
For my deck, big years. Anyway, of my deck of 12, Unduju.
Acholi Primary School's live debate. Acholi Primary School's live debate. Which school remains and which school goes out? This is the question that remains to be answered. Are you ready for this weekend? The 12th of July 2025. The knockout stage is here. We shall have more than 18 schools battling it out live on 104.1 Favour FM.
Honorable, let me inform you that domestic violence are caused by poor parents, because instead of working for their family to stand strong, they end up started fighting against themselves, so that children run away from them. So don't confuse us by saying a drunkard parents. Even for you really know that the poor parents, they have nothing, they end up started fighting for just a small mere bean like this, leading to conflict at home. So don't confuse them.
Thank you for deceiving us, but let me tell you, this alcohol here, when our parents they have taken, let us assume that our parents just from the center taking alcohol will come and find when our parents
confidence, fluency, character, knowledge, and so much more. We shall also be live on internet radio via the Zeno app, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. This event is sponsored by Favour of God Ministries, Genesis Fashion Point, Koropida, and GoTunesUG.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Praise the Lord Jesus. I thank God for today. I'm here in Favour of God FM. It is a blessing for me to reach this place. My name's Fiona Higenyi. I am here purposely because I was attentively listening to some programs on the station, and more so that time it was the Breath of Heaven, which is presented by Patrick, and questions were given. With all my heart, I answered them because I knew I was encouraging somebody that it is possible to answer such questions, not basically because of what I was going to get, but today I'm here to receive my Bible, and as I talk, I have it in my hands. I want to encourage all the listeners from within Gulu, from wherever you're listening to Favour FM, tune in. This is a station that is very inspiring. It teaches people the ways of God. It encourages you to walk right with God. And it also gives beautiful music that encourage you when you're broken and counseling. Tune in. Don't mind on which program it is. All the programs are power-packed. They can build your life. If you pick it up from 6 a.m. in the morning and you come over to other programs, reaching evening, by the time the evening programs are ending, your life is not the same. And I want to challenge you also not to miss the programs of Sunday family program. Family life. You know, all of us come from families, so we need to build our lives and know we come from a family and we extend families. I come from Kasubi, basically.
Adore bot Willie Max Kachelki Jo Mati Studio B. Willie?
For it to all Simon, for the win video, for it to all our judges. Your team is actually here before you. Let me give them the opportunity to showcase their ability to debate this important subject.
Thank you so much, Willie Max and the listeners. We are back on the debate room. We have Gulu Central taking on the swing team. In other words, taking on the unattached, those who are untouchable. So we'll have our the first speaker, that is Ayerot Mary, on stage.
Honorable judges, affirmative, negative, ladies and honorable judges, affirmative, negative, ladies and gentlemen. I am by name Ayerwan Mary Machilet from Glu Central Nursery and Primary School. Coming to affirm the motion restates, this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. As being the first principal speaker from the affirmative side, it's my role to define the motion, state the perimeter of the debate, state the status quo, state the policies, and outline our cases as well as offering the reply speeches. Without waste of time, allow me to define the motion by simplifying some of the keywords in it. The keywords are: this house refers to a debating assembly. Will tie means the house will establish a clear causal connection. High Acholi poverty index refers to the persistently elevated poverty levels in the Acholi sub-region of northern Uganda, which consistently ranks among the poorest in the country. According to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, UBOS 2021, the multidimensional poverty rate in some Acholi districts, for example, Kitgum, Lamu, and Pade, exceeds 60% compared to a national average of around 21%. Poor leadership refers to systemic governance failures at both local and national levels, including corruption, lack of political will, ineffective public service delivery, and inadequate post-conflict recovery policies that have directly or indirectly perpetuated poverty in the Acholi region. Honorable judges, in this debate, are in the Acholi region. Honorable judges, allow me to split the speaker's role. The second speaker will refute, rebuild, and rebuttal. She will explain two cases. The third speaker will refute, rebuild, and rebuttal. She will explain two cases. She will wait for us the debate. Honorable judges, our status quo is currently the Acholi sub-region has one of the highest poverty rates in Uganda. Many households rely on subsistence farming, with low productivity, unemployment, and unemployment are rampant, especially among the youth. Honorable judges, we the affirmatives will use the following policies. We shall establish a clear performance benchmark for leaders, both political and technical, in the region. We shall introduce regular public performance audits of district leader. Any who fails to meet poverty reduction targets will face removal, sanctions, or will be barred from contesting again. We shall put a strong anti-corruption court to suspend and give possible criminal charges to any who misuse and mismanage funds. We shall take community to demand transparency, monitor local budgets, and hold leaders accountable. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we the affirmatives will accomplish the above policies by 2026. Honorable judges, the sustained poverty in the Acholi region is not merely a result of war legacy or undevelopment, but primarily due to chronic leadership failures at different tiers of government, both historical and contemporary governance. Therefore, our cases are historical neglect and marginalization by successive governments, failure to rehabilitate after conflict, corruption and mismanagement of development funds, leadership failure in land governance and resource management, inequitable national resource allocation, weak political representation and accountability, leadership's inability to empower local economies. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to go straight to my lines of argument. To begin with, historical neglect and marginalization by successive governments. Since independence, Uganda's leadership has systematically marginalized northern Uganda, from especially Acholi sub-region, from post-Amin era to Kanye administration. Deliberate police nuggets and militarized governance in the region have laid foundation for underdevelopment. Northern Uganda was negated economically in favor of the south, leading to deep-seated region inequality. An extract from Branch 2011, displacing human rights, war and intervention in northern Uganda. That is why I stand firm to agree with today's motion. To keep the ball rolling, allow me to talk about failure to rehabilitate after conflict. The 20-year LRA insurgency devastated Acholi communities. However, poor leadership has failed to implement effective post-war recovery programs. The Peace Recovery and Development Plan, PRDP, meant to rebuild northern Uganda, was poorly executed and riddled with corruption. Auditor General report revealed billions of shillings misappropriated and the PRDP minimal tangible benefits to communities. Northern Uganda PRDP review 2015 found that only 45% of planned projects were completed and most did not meet quality standards. That is why I stand firm to agree with this motion. Since a good dog deserves a good bone, allow me to talk about corruption and mismanagement of development funds. Local leaders and technocrats have misused funds intended for poverty, elevation and social service, power financial accountability as black meaningful development. When I talk corruption, I talk about the anti-corruption court which is fighting against corruption. But let me assure you that the existence of anti-corruption law shows that there's corruption in our contemporary society. What's the clear manifestation that this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership? Transparency International Uganda, 2019. Not that corruption is especially rampant in local government procurement and service delivery in northern districts. Billions have been pumped into Acholi through initiatives like NUSURF, PRDP, and on the Parish Development Molo, PDM. Yet, poverty has increased from 45% to 68% in some districts, and except from 9 posts 2024. Acholi MPs themselves accuse local technocrats and politicians of diverting funds and delaying programs for selfish interests. When funds meant for roads, school, and livelihoods are stolen, poverty festers. Not allowed. But protected time also. With this, I conclude by saying that this source will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Because leadership is not just about holding the position, it's about delivering results for the people. And where results are absent, the failures lies in leadership. Gratitude.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. May we then react by having the Honorable Salome Christian Upoka.
Resolve. First, you have a motion that states, this House will tie the high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, the first proposition speaker came and spoke about their points as historical neglect and naturalization, failure to habilitate. Yeah, right. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, of all the points that she said, I do understand some of the points that she said, but of all that, you find that she was speaking mostly about the leaders. Weren't you the very person who went to elect these leaders? I know you might can't say that these leaders, when they are while campaigning, they will come and tell you, they will motivate you to elect them. But if since you know that these leaders are just motivating you to elect them, why do you elect them? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we as team opposition, we have come up with our points as social lifestyle of the Acholi, historical factors, structural setting of Acholi. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, under social lifestyle of the Acholi, I'd like to talk about alcoholism, gambling, laziness, and under historical factors, I'd like to talk about the 1986 to 2006 war, that 2006 LRA war. Under structural setting of Acholi, I would like to talk about low level of electricity, low level of education. Just ladies and gentlemen, allow me to talk about our first point as social lifestyle of the Acholi. Allow me to talk about alcohol. We as the Acholi spend most of our times drinking. The youth are ever in bars taking alcohol, complaining that only poor leadership is complaining about only poor leadership. What have you, the Acholi, done in order to fight the poor leadership? Have you done anything? No. Allow me to talk. Mind you, you find that this point in the bus, they only be asking for the government to help them. How do you expect the government to help you, yet you have not even helped yourself? In fact, even the Bible says that the God can only help you if you help yourself. Allow me to talk about gambling. You find these youth are just busy gambling in gambling centers. How will such youth get rid of poverty? Do you need to blame poor leadership for your addiction in gambling? No. Let me talk about laziness. The youth are ever at the roadside as if they are supervising people walking the road, and some of them behave like they own the road. Why Can these people who are on the road get rid of poverty? No. You find that sometimes, though you give these people work, others will start, after a short time, they start complaining that, no, this work is hard. How can these people get rid of that poverty? I'll now talk about our point of historical factors. The war that was in 1986 to 2006, that was the LRA war. Took 20 years in IDP, 20 years in IDP camps. As a result of these wars, you find that very many good leaders who were there by then were killed just as a result of these wars. But because of moral decay, the LRA war was waged by an Acholi who is not morally behaved. That is why we tie it to moral decay, not leadership. If he felt like there was poor leadership in Uganda affecting the development of Acholi, then why did he kill his own people? Was it his own people who are in this government? No. I don't talk about structural setting of Acholi. Under that, I would like to talk about low level of electricity. Leaders cannot start connecting electricity, but it is the work of the government programs. If the government have not set up that, they should start providing electricity. Do you expect the LC1 to start providing electricity in these areas? No, the LC1 cannot do that, but it's the work of the government. Under low level of education, find that most of we actually do not want to study. We have very good schools. Here we have Oche Campion, Jesuits, outstanding in the Uganda, Bishop's Flynn in Pade, and so on. If you are to go to these schools, you find that 50% of the Acholi cannot even reach 50% in those schools, yet the school is located in the Acholi sub-region. This is why we say the Acholi do not want to study. Instead, they want to engage in criminality, early sex, and other forms of antisocial behaviors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Christian Opoka Salome. Allow me then have the Honorable Lakicha Blessing Winnie.
Honorable judges, affirmative, negative, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Akisa Blessing Winnie. I am a pupil of Gulu Central Nursery and Primary School. I am here to affirm the motion which states this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. As being the second speaker from the affirmative side, it's my role to refute, rebuild, and rebuttal. As the motion has been well defined by our first speaker, allow me to go straight to my lines of argument. But before that, allow me to rebut what my opponent says. One of the honorable negator came here and talked about laziness. But let me assure you that Acholi people are hardworking but lack opportunities. It's the role of leaders to create systems that support predicts like access to markets, critics, education, and skills training. Failure to do that is a failure of leadership. Honorable judges, another one also came here and talked about womb. But let me assure you that protected time. Yes, the war caused distractions, but it ended near 2 decades ago. Good leadership would have built the region by now. Many other areas in Uganda, not allowed, like Teso and West Nile, also caused conflicts, but they are recovering faster because of better leadership and development plans. The Acholi remains poor because leaders have failed to prioritize post-conflict recovery effectively. Honorable judges, I would like to assure the House and like that the political leaders are really making the Acholi to suffer and always poor. That is why our first speaker outlined the following cases: historical neglect, failure to educate after conflicts, corruption and mismanagement of development funds, leadership failure in land government and resource management, equitable national resource allocations, weak political representation and accountabilities, leadership inability to empower local economies. She talked about historical neglect, failure to educate after conflicts, and corruption and mismanagement of development funds. Honorable judges, allow me to pick it up from where she has stopped and talked about.
leadership failure in land government and resource management. Here, you will agree with me that unclear land tenure system fueled by poor political laws and exploitations by elites have ended agricultural investment and displaced vulnerable communities, and leaders who are just silent about it, leaving residents to do land for culture.
POI speaker.
Land and equity movement in Uganda, Lemon, reports that weak leadership is registering customary land as well as internal insecurity. Land grabbing by investors and elites have led to food insecurity and disempowerment of locals. Honorable judges, this is an extract from Rugadia, 2009, Northern Uganda, land study. My dear opponents, without secured access to land, how can people grow and build? This is an extract from Daily Express, 2025. Honorable judges, since one man misses another man's poison, allow me to talk about equitable national resource allocations. Here, you will agree with me that national budget prioritizes consistently certain actual needs, especially infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Leadership decisions at the center have failed to allocate funds based on regional poverty indices. CSBG budget analysis 2020 showed less than 3% of development spending goes to Northern Uganda, despite its disproportionate poverty levels. In conclusion, the persistent poverty in Acholi sub-region is not simply the aftermath of war or development. It's directly the decades of poor leadership, both at the national and local levels. With this, I would like to conclude by saying that this house will tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Gratitude.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Lakisa. Blessing winning. Let me then have the Honorable Kisa Okelo.
Resolve. This house will tie the high rate of Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Allow me to start by refuting some of the points my opponent stated. The government said that leaders are the ones to create for us employment. I would like to assure you that there are people who have created their own employment. How? They have built tailoring workshops, carpentry workshops, and many others. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, they did not give us a clear understanding on some of the points that they were talking about. Allow me go straight and reveal on the points stated by my first speaker. She came and talked about the social lifestyle of the Acholi. She came and told you that the government cannot help you, yet you are not helping yourself. We the Acholi spend most of our time drinking. The youth are ever complaining of only poor leaders. What have you done to fight poverty? I'd like to talk under this. The government helps you to let me first talk about alcoholism. Like you find out like most of these youths are alcoholics. And they complain about leaders, that leaders are bad people. What? Yet they spend most of their time in like these gambling centers. Now you find that how do you expect a person who is addicted to gambling to complain? How do you expect someone who is addicted to gambling to do work? The person goes to the gambling centers and gambles all the time. Very early in the morning, you find the youth at the roadside. They're staying there as if they're on the road now. They're staying there as if they're on the road. In the morning, you find them supervising. Instead of being in the gardens, digging so that they get money, food, and other things. I like to talk about historical laziness. We all know that Acholi is a lazy tribe. Now you find that employment is created for you. You stay there like for 2 months only. After 2 months, you start complaining to your manager, this job is very hard. Now how do you expect money? How do you expect to get money if you're not working? I like to talk about structural setting of the Acholi. Leaders cannot start to connect electricity to people in the villages. They're ever complaining. It's the role of the government to do that. Do you have a question? Now, these guys, do you expect your LC1 from the village there to come and start putting for you guys electricity? It's the role of the government to do that. I'd like to talk about, out of this, I'd like to talk about low level of education. You find that they actually don't want to study. Yet we have very good schools in northern Uganda like Oche Jesuit College and Bishop Flynn. Now Oche has been crowned like one of the most outstanding schools in Uganda. Children don't want to study. You find them, some of them, you find them, they don't want to study. Now they have become bad people in the community. In a school like Oche Jesuit College, you may find that they actually cannot even make up 50% of the school's population. What does it show? It shows that they actually don't want to study.
Do you have something to say about what I've just stated? No, they have nothing. Honorable judges, you see, they have nothing to say about what I've just said. Now you find that these Acholi, instead of going to school, they want to engage in activities like criminality, early sex, and other forms of antisocial behavior. Now, how do you expect Allah to develop yet the youth are not going to schools? They're just there at the roadside supervising. Ah, my friend.
Just came here and talk about alcoholism. But let me assure you that it is the political leaders who are allowing the selling of alcohol in Uganda. That is
speaker.
Protected time. That is why we the affirmative are saying that this house will tie actually poverty index to poor leadership. Because if the political leaders accepted the citizens to buy alcohol, and when they know that fully well that it can lead to poverty, then
speaker.
Protected time. We should blame the poor leadership instead of the citizens. And then we also came here and talk about Dash. But let me assure you that. And then we also came here and talk about structural setting of alcohol. But let me assure you that while poverty exists in other regions, Acholi's rate is usually high. That shows
speaker.
Not allowed. That shows a unique failure in leadership. Other regions have used strong leadership to reduce poverty levels. Acholi has not. If national policies affect everyone equally, then why is Acholi suffering more? Not allowed. They also came here and talk about gambling. But let me assure you that poor choices often operates under poor options. It's leadership that should create better choices through education, empowerment, and infrastructures. If leadership ignores youth empowerment and economic development, they trap people in poverty. Horrible charges, ladies and gentlemen. That our first speaker outlined.
Speaker.
She talked about historical neglect, failure to rehabilitate after conflicts, and corruptions and mismanagement of development funds. Our second speaker talked about leadership failure in land governance and resource management, and inequitable natural resource allocations. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to pick it up from where they have stopped and talked about with political representations and accountabilities. Here, you will agree with me that elected leaders from Acholi have often failed to prioritize regions' development. Either corporate really unilateral ineffective. They have not pressured the government to address structural poverty. Not allowed.
Speaker, you need this.
On top of that, the leaders have failed to effectively labor for major development projects and monitors government programs to ensure public funds reach the grassroots. There's a growing gap between local leadership and community needs in Acholi. An extract from International Peace Group 2017. That is why I stand firm to agree with this motion. Honorable judges, to get the ball rolling, allow me to talk about leadership inability to empower local economies. Here, you'll agree with me that rather than enabling inclusive economic growth, for example, supporting local farmers, supporting local farmers, SMEs, or cooperative, policies have concentrated on ministrations, for example, operations well creations, with little results. Top-down, military-led economic programs have failed to reflect the actual needs of the other communities. An extract from Goloba, Mutebi, and Ike, 2016. That is why I stand firm to agree with this motion. Honorable judges, I'll conclude by saying that the high poverty levels in Acholi are not just strategic legends of conflict, but ongoing consequences of poor leadership choices. From neglect, corruptions, misallocations, the lack of accountabilities, leadership failure is a central driver tying the regions to poverty. That is why I stand firm to agree with this motion. Honorable judges, I'll conclude by saying that this house will tie actually poverty index to poor leadership. Gratitude.
Thank you so much, Honorable Abe Masi. Now allow me invite Honorable Abeja Rebecca.
The precious step of the notable honorable judges, the two rivalry parties, ladies and gentlemen in the August House, resolve. This house will tie high actually poverty index to poor leadership. Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, don't be like a foolish girl. We lick the sharp edge of an axe, dear ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to start by clearing of the misleading concepts brought in by our opponents. They talked about corruption. If I'm to ask you my opponent, to what extent do you believe corruption among local leaders in actually contributes to poverty? Can you provide examples of how this has manifested in Acholi? Can you react? Can you react? Can you react? Meaning you're fearing us. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to add more light on what our team members talked about. They talked about social lifestyle of the Acholi. Dear ladies and gentlemen, under this, they talked about laziness. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the youth are ever at the roadsides as if they're supervising the road, or the people walking along the road, dear ladies and gentlemen. They also talked about structural setting of Acholi. Dear ladies and gentlemen, under this, they talked about low level of electricity. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is a government program. Leaders cannot start connecting electricity, but instead, we have to educate our children to eradicate the poverty and the electricity connected. Dear ladies and gentlemen, they also talk about historical factors. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the Lord Resistance Army War was waged by an Acholi who is not morally behaving. That's why we tie it to moral decay, not poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, with this source will not tie high Acholi poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, when leadership plays a role in local development, blaming Acholi's poverty solely over a simplifies deep-rooted complex crisis. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the factor beyond the control of local leaders. Dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to talk on legacy of the LRA insurgency and prolonged conflict between 1986 to 2006. Dear ladies and gentlemen, war was the main driver of poverty, displacing communities and destroying livelihoods. Evidence shows that for nearly 20 years, the actually Sub-region was the epicenter of the Lord Resistance Army War, one of the most brutal insurgencies in Africa. Dear ladies and gentlemen, according to the United Nations and the Refugees Law Project, 1.8 million people, 90% of the population were displaced into internal displaced people's camp. Dear ladies and gentlemen, over 30,000 children were abducted and forced into combat or slavery. Dear ladies and gentlemen, consequence shows that entire generation...
POI, is that allowed?
Not allowed, I'm still young. Dear ladies and gentlemen, consequence shows that entire generation lost access to education, land cultivation...
POI, is that allowed?
Not allowed. Unproductive economic life, creating long-term poverty, dear ladies and gentlemen. For instance, in Kidgum and Pade...
POI, is that allowed?
Not allowed. In Kidgum and Pade, school-going children were night commuters, hiding from rebels rather than learning in class. This
POI, is that allowed?
Report development. A World Bank report 2011 noted that actually lost 80% of its infrastructure and most schools were abandoned, banned, or vandalized during the war.
POI, is that allowed?
It's allowed.
Thank you so much, Honorable. But I will let assure you that the war ended long time. Good leadership should have rebuilt the illusion by now.
Honorable, let me educate you on bursary that good leadership should have built it, but most of the infrastructures were destroyed. So the leaders are still rebuilding it. It takes a long time for them to rebuild because most of the infrastructure were destroyed. Dear ladies and gentlemen, you cannot blame the one... I'm still young. You cannot blame the one repairing the house for the storm that broke it. Dear ladies and gentlemen, actually leaders are operating within a broken...
POI, is that allowed?
I'm still pregnant. First, let me give birth. Dear ladies and gentlemen, actually leaders are operating within a broken fragment...
POI, is that allowed?
I'm still young. A neglected system, and when leadership reforms are needed, the roots of poverty lie beyond local control in war, national politics, trauma, and marginalization.
POI, is that allowed?
Not allowed. Dear ladies and gentlemen, since this is a policy motion, we expected the Prime Minister to give us the policy models or how they are going to implement the policy. But they did not tell us who they are, what policy are they making, the rationale, the mechanism, their source of fund, when they will implement the policy, and their benefits here, ladies and gentlemen. With this, we stand firm and say this house will not tie high actually poverty index to poor leadership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, green light me to stop here. But before I recess from this pulpit, allow me to welcome all my friends who were lost in the bush for thousands of years to stop boiling the ocean. And come and queue behind me so that we sing the same hymn that says, this house will not tie high actually poverty index to poor leadership. Gratitude, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Abeja Rebecca. Allow me then call the reply speech from the opposition side. Honorable,
thank you, honorable judges, the two debating teams, and not forgetting the audience. I'm back on stage for a reply speech. I'd like to talk about some of the points that they stated. They said that these leaders, that they're the ones supposed to create employment, but we came and told you guys clearly that people can also create their own employment. Why? Some people own carpentry workshops, some people own bakers, and many others. They came and misunderstood one of our points. We said that it was It was this one here. It was structural setting of Acholi, not structural setting of alcohol. How can alcohol have a structural setting? I wanted to raise a POI to them saying that Kakanyero Estates has created jobs. If you want leaders to create jobs, but also these people have worked hard and created jobs like Kakanyero Estates. What of the medical superintendents? They have also created jobs for the Acholi. I like to talk about the social lifestyle of the Acholi. We the Acholi spend most of our time drinking alcohol. The youth are ever in bars complaining of only poor leaders. What have you done to fight poverty? Only asking the government to help them. How will you expect the government to help you yet you have not helped yourself? Even the Bible says that. I like to talk about laziness. As I came and told you that, they actually are very lazy people. Instead of like being very early in the morning in the garden digging, doing productive work, you find someone on the road. The person is behaving as if he or she owns the road. Instead of being in the garden or doing any productive activity that can bring money. I'd like to talk about historical factors. As my first speaker came and told you that the 1986 to 2006 LRA war led to wealth looting. People lost their property. People were killed. People were displaced. Now, you guys are saying that by now it should have all gone. But I'd like to tell you that it takes a lot of time to recover what has been lost. Like, now infrastructures, a lot of infrastructures have been destroyed. Now a lot of infrastructure was destroyed. It will take time to build that infrastructure back. Like, because of moral decay, the LRA war was waged by an Acholi who is not morally behaved. That is why we tie it to moral decay, not leadership. If he felt like there was poor leadership in Uganda affecting the development of Acholi, then allow me rest my case.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Allow me then give opportunity to the proposer side to bring for us the
Honorable judges, affirmative, negative, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ayero Mary Machulet. I am not here to debate but to offer reply speeches. We talked about historical neglect and marginalization by successive governments. Not only that, we also talked about failure to rehabilitate after conflict. Not only that, furthermore, we talked about corruption and mismanagement of development funds. We also talked about leadership failure in land grabs and resource management. Not only that, we also talked about inequitable national resource allocation. All in all, we also talked about weak political representation and accountability. And finally, we talked about leadership's inability to empower local economies. We deserve a win in this debate because our first principal speaker, because me as the first principal speaker, defined the motion, stated the status quo, split the speaker's role, outlined our cases, and explained 3 cases. We also deserve a win in this debate because our second speaker refuted, rebuilt, and rebutted. She explained 2 cases. Furthermore, we also deserve a win in this debate because our third principal speaker refuted, rebuilt, and rebutted. And wait for us, the debate. We also deserve a win in this debate because the negator did not rebut all our points. The following are the points that were not rebutted. Failure to rehabilitate after conflict, leadership failure in land grabs and resource management, inequitable resource allocation, weak political representation and accountability. That is why we deserve a win in this debate. Also, the Honorable came here and was saying, actually people don't want to study. Do you find them shouting around the streets that they don't want to study? It's because of poverty. The government is not providing enough money to the actually people. That is why they are staying at home. And you walk around villages, you find many of them going in the village at 6 in the morning and coming back at going in the garden at 6 in the morning and coming back at 5 maybe in the evening. Then how can you say that they don't want to study? They are looking for that money to go to school. Yes. They did not say go to other schools like Uche Champion. Gratitude.
Thank you so much, Honorable. You can have a handshake. Please greet the fair game. Back to the house.
Right. Thank you very much, Denise, for these awesome duties that you have performed. And thank you very much also our very beautiful and handsome debaters for putting up a very spectacular show. I'm actually pleased by the extent that you're able to adequately deliberate on subject that is as critical as is some closing speeches before we can welcome the program's manager to close this session.
Thank you so much. And of course, Willie, well, we had the last set of debate from Gulu Central National Primary School. They took on the swing team. It's all happening on Favour FM Lawin Radio. It's actually Favour FM Primary School debate. Well, meno enekin matini wabero kere and now kawipo me ereke dik wabero 12 kiporon go bere kere makaki double AA. Inge Kenya obino ki Favour Nursery Primary School gina makaki School Road. Inge Kenya obiro ki Riverside gina makaki Gulu Central Junior. Inge Kenya obiro ki Igo gina makaki Labor Line. Then inge Kenya waneno twale meno debate kin St. Matthews gina ki Al-Shaddai Team A. Then inge Kenya obiro ki Mama Catherine gina ki Rooted Christian. Then inge Kenya Al-Shaddai Team B gina makaki Credo Team A. Then Opid Modern took on Credo Team B. Then Lukui, actually primary school, Gomakaki, St. Mark, Poron. And the last set was actually Gulu Central versus the swing team. The swing team came in because Orchard Nursery Primary School did not appear for tonight's function. So Menom Enekin Martini no what ye ka Keliagiki made debate Makamega, but in a short while we'll actually be getting back to our adjudicators to give us their final remarks as we finish it off. Man Favour FM and avoid my degot welcome ken mano unity ye and no kafuri tiki tam tiki mire lokera namachima kamekwa tie twolo eto kongono kwena michato well.
Acholi Primary School's live debate. Acholi Primary School's live debate. Which school remains and which school goes out? This is the question that remains to be answered. Are you ready for this weekend? The 12th of July 2025. The knockout stage is here. We shall have more than 18 schools battling it out live on 104.1 Favour FM.
Honorable, let me inform you that domestic violence are caused by poor parents because instead of working for their family to stand strong, they end up started fighting against themselves so that children run away from them. So don't confuse us by saying a drunkard parents. Even for you really know that the poor parents, they have nothing. They end up started fighting for just a small mere bean like this, leading to conflict at home. So don't confuse them.
Thank you for deceiving us. But let me tell you, this alcohol here, when our parents they have taken, let us assume that our parents just from the center taking alcohol will come and find when our parents
confidence, fluency, character, knowledge, and so much more. We shall also be live on internet radio via the Zero app, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. This event is sponsored by Favour of God Ministries, Genesis Fashion Point, Koropida, and GoTunesUG.com. Terms and conditions apply. We have had situations where we have gone through distressing moments, memories that at times leave us feeling stunted. As humans, we all have experiences in our lives that leave an indelible mark on us. Some of these experiences equate to trauma and traumatic situations and shape us much like our happy and joyous moments do, though perhaps more powerfully. To learn more about trauma, listen to a program on trauma counseling every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. only on 104.1 Favour FM.
Got luba memon. Yen luba makay amalo kalwen. Bay wero ki yo. Apoy biane amalo kalwen pelotino ni. Jeme ba pol tie maudi ukwogi. Ma chu ukwogi chalo Goliath. Ente ni matin Goliath bot pay.
Nyorot Goliath mochu inyima miroreta wogoba na nyorot Goliath mochu inyima miroreta wogoba ona ya nyorot Goliath mochunyima miroreta wogoba. Bete chala winyo radio. Kamoke ken ma initika winyo Favour FM amoro in. Chuko chunyi ni meteke winyo Favour FM kama ini no ye lok palobama chuko chunyi da konyo in medoni yeni. Nya gilwani masibite winy Favour FM pikara duchu wek ni yeni odon. Goliath mochunyima miroreta wogoba.
Achiel nora ngwen tona achiel Favour Farmer.
Imwagawa eni walengo medguvu mamegwa. Imwagawa eni walengo medgumi kwa. Nemwaga kachiro kuman mediot kwa mamegwa. Imwagawa eni walengo winko. One speaks in this way. I've been a body, I don't want you up in it till I call I've been a body, call you kill a body, in it till I call Baba till I call Baby, where I can, then I can't get it. Then I don't want any leg on Chibi chungilo tiene matwala pakare beko Chike mamegi tiwacho wachona tukwene fotiyo Opedo kigen Nendano pegane but yini gane Last year no wedding Wacha wala bonkin This year wacha ruki in Where power don't come a ding Jene yoki in There is that decent And to kape in Chibana watema kwe belly I've been a body I don't want you up in it till I call ya. Auntie, I've been a body, call you kill a body in it till I call ya. Baba till I call Baby, where I can, then I can't get it. Then I do a romo. Any nigga now. Baby, any nigga now. I don't wanna live for myself, I don't wanna keep it to my best, leave the rest to your honor. I just wanna give all my praise, I just wanna keep it to our faith this year. We just wanna see your glory rise in our lives. We just wanna keep it to the price of the purpose. We just wanna. You go bless my days, you bless my friends, you go bless you go fill my cup, you be my guide, you go be my guide. You go bless my family, you bless.
Well, lucky Favour FM, la winner the Wati primary school debate, and we are just at the conclusion. Willie?
Thank you very much, Simon, and everybody listening. It is good that we are all aware that whatever begins ends. And it is now at this material time that we have come to the end of the program today. But Simon, before I get back to the table of the adjudicators, maybe you would wish to say bye to your listeners in Studio One.
Thank you so much. And of course, what for my take out in my air when you are my air deco, maybe in a way chapa my command, we pony minute chabit manyan, and a championship actually not debate or take a dukubotin, Kamano schools being in their fate. Are they continuing to quarter and actually to semi-final and then a final? Kajamonaco. So one for my take out, you madrung, no food be metakaniki Favour FM, and of course, Willie and Roboto.
Thank you very much, and I will also give this opportunity to the honorable judges to say bye to us, or at least give us some information that they have to relay. Then we shall be able to welcome our programs manager, Innocent, to come and address us in closure.
Thank you so much, Willie Max, the listeners, Simon, the radio team, I want to applaud all the different schools that showed interest in this year's debate. The debate has gone to another level. And I would like to say and advise that many schools that are always shying away, you're losing a lot. Because there is something that debate builds in a child. And when you uphold and encourage your children, pupils to participate, they're receiving a change in their grade at school. They're receiving a change in their behavior at school and at home. So parents, advise your children to join debating clubs. Schools register in different debate platforms for your schools to participate in, because you never know what will come for your child. I don't have much to say. We will meet up in the next round of the debate next weekend. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Ngomokwe Fred for always allowing me to do what I love most. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Willie Max, the listeners, and all the schools that participated. I would like to encourage the speakers, more especially the pupils, who had the opportunity to come and participate in this year's edition. It was a tight one. You have got enough experience. I can pledge that you are more better than a lot of honorables out there. And I want to encourage the other schools that have not made it this year, try as much as possible to at least register for the next edition. This is so good. This has given a platform for these children to show their ability in expressing their views, which is very okay. I would love the leaders to pick it up from the kids. They did extremely good work that even leaders cannot do. I believe our listeners have witnessed, they have enjoyed, and I pray that next Saturday, stay tuned for more. Thank you.
Otherwise, thank you very much, my dear judges. Thank you for the good work you've done. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you, the team patrons, the teachers of the different schools, the directors, the administrators. Thank you for bringing your children to take up the challenge in debating. It is one way that children develop. It's not only in class. They develop when they engage with their friends in a very healthy interaction like this. It has been a wonderful day 2 that has come to an end. Unfortunately, we did not give all the results out because we want it to be a blind round for helping us to draw into the quarterfinals. However, next week on Saturday, first thing in the morning, we shall release the results when all the schools have already reported. And we shall explain into details, and our doors are open for any questions and for any consultations, for any issues concerning the debate judgment of last week and this week. And above all, I want to thank the directors and the administrators, especially for Lokui Primary School, Puron Primary Schools, St. Mark Purongo. These are schools that traveled far. Riverside, these are schools that traveled far to come and be part of this challenge. May the great Lord may the great Lord multiply more and more favor on your side. And to administrators of Radio Favour, thank you very much for taking this as part of your program. We know you may have a lineup of program to put online, but however you chose to make the children take up your time on Saturdays. May good Lord bless you and expand you. From the judges, we say thank you. See you next week.
Thank you very much, our dear judges. At this material time, I will invite the program's manager to come and close by giving us an immaculate speech as he closes this function today.
Thank you so much, Willie Max. Thank you for the great work you've done. I would love to first thank God for making this day the day it is. And secondly, I would love to thank our judges for the great work you've done, the resilience, the time that you've put in this debate. From morning, from last week, today, and even next week, we surely don't take it for granted. It's a great sacrifice. Thank you so much. I would love to appreciate the radio team for the great work all of you've done. Because without you, this wouldn't be a success. From Willie Max to Simon in the studio, Robert, Ogenrod Daniel. I would love to appreciate Sarah, Brenda, everyone, Emmanuel Ludolo, wherever you guys are. Thank you so much for the heart that you've put towards this. Even the management, the administration of Favour of God Ministries, we would love to thank you so much in your absentia because of the different duties. That's why you're not here with us today. I would love to appreciate our dear sponsors who are ensuring that this, of course, comes to the limelight and we promote the different talents within our kids. I would love to thank GoTunes. I would love to thank Genesis Fashion, Movit Products, of course, the different MPs who are behind this. Thank you so much, Gilbert Olanya, and the rest who are coming on board. Thank you, parents and listeners, wherever you are. Thank you for supporting your children to come for this debate. And I would love to thank the different schools who have paid and participated in this debate. May God, of course, bless you abundantly. Today, it was knockout stage, though blind. And our results were not given out. All the things will be done next week. If you're listening to us, I know various schools are listening through loudspeakers. And of course, they have small radios that they are following this program from. So next week, we are going to have the final results for the knockout stages. And the certificates will be given to the schools that will be knocked out, and the pupils and the patrons. And then immediately after that, we'll have the semifinals and the finals kickoff. After that, we'll be having the awarding ceremonies where we'll have different guests come in. And of course, different awards will be given to different participants, the winners, the best speakers, the best schools, and the rest. So make sure if you're tuning in right now as a school, next week, please come in person because it's going to be the grand finale. So don't miss. As Radio Favour will continue to support the talent of the young pupils in regards to debate and whatever things that will support their future to grow well. And I would love to thank everyone who had at least managed to put something into this debate so that it can succeed. With these few remarks, I would love to welcome any willing Christian, maybe amongst us, even from the judges, to just give us a closing prayer. I know you're very tired for the great work you've done. Madam Angela Ngomkwe, please let me welcome you. You give us a closing prayer. Madam Angela, the Holy Spirit wants you to come and give us the closing prayer. Please, you're very much welcome. Thank you so much for the hard work, guys. May God bless you so much. Our manager has been, he's having a different duty altogether. That's why he's not with us to give the closing prayer. I mean the closing remarks. But anyhow, next week, he's going to be with us full swing. So thank you so much. With this, for God and my country, may God bless you.
Thank you, Madam Innocent, the program's manager. I am not yet born. In the last year's debate, the debaters sang for me a happy birthday. It happened to be on a Saturday, so tomorrow is my birthday, meaning I'm still in the womb. But God will lead me. Yes. Let's humble ourselves and we pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, I want to thank you for the gift of life you've given us. For many have died in the night, but you've given us life to praise, worship, and glorify your name. Merciful and ever-loving God, I put this radio into your hands and all its program, Jesus. I put all the listeners into your hands, O Lord. I put all the schools participating and those that have not registered interest in this debate, Jesus, that you may touch their hearts for the betterment of the future of their children, O Lord. May you continue increasing the ministry, continue increasing the radio with enough resources so that they can be able to execute all their programs successfully. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Thank you so much. Ladit Simon,
Innocent.
I hope you're with us. And
I'm
thank you
still
so
here.
much for sitting there from morning up to now. May God bless you so much.
No worries.
Yes. So, our dear listeners, we've come to the end of today's knockout stage. Please tune in again next Saturday, and may God bless you. Have a blessed day.
Celebrate. Festival. Cuero,